If we could rise for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with that, we begin the county board meeting this morning. First item of business is approval of the agenda. As short as it is.
I was going to ask, I saw Greg put on discussion items, the planning and zoning. I was wondering if we could also make that an action item. I don't know if it's too late to, because it's been 2 months.
The action item. I don't
What we're
even
going to do
know.
with that office or the plan for moving forward?
I don't know what is the plan. What are we gonna make an action on if we don't know what?
Guess we're in the discussion stages, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. That'll just be another couple weeks before. Okay. I just thought I'd bring that up. I thought it was good that Greg put it on.
Since it wasn't advertised
Okay,
to the public.
yeah.
I just put it in for a discussion, not to make any moving.
Okay, sounds good. Just thought I'd ask. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as it is.
Motion made, excuse me, motion made and seconded to approve the agenda. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying, saying aye.
All right,
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the previous minutes from the board meeting held July 6, 2021.
They look good. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of July 6th. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comment. I can't see, I only see the picture of us, so apparently there's nobody else online.
Yeah, there is. For the record, can you state your name, telephone number 608-769-9200?
That's Mark Inglet.
Oh, Mark. Okay. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
You got a public comment, Mark?
No public comment.
Okay. Hearing no public comments. It would be nice if we could see on the screen anybody else that's on there. I don't know why we can't. I'll talk to Andy. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. We've got 2 items on the consent agenda. My hirings, Darlene Peter as a probationary deputy recorder and Isaiah Bunke as a probationary deputy sheriff.
Is that why, Mark, is that why you're on the phone today for the sheriff's deputy thing?
Yes.
Okay,
Is he replacing somebody that was leaving or moved on?
we've been short.
Yes, he's replacing Deputy Dan Coogan.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we move on to action items. First action item, consider approving change order request number 11 for the highway facility project. Change order request includes the cost to connect to the new electrical gas service to the new building and install a clean agent fire suppression system in the records room. Is Brian with us?
He might be still in the back room there. He should.
oh, he was in the building?
Can you get him for us, Carol? On this deal here, this is a change order because they had the dry system in the tech room versus the records room. So Brian can explain that some more.
Is this a moving of something then, or moving it from the tech room to the?
it was bid out wrong because they had the drive system in the tech room, not in the records room. So the contractor had to change the order to switch it around, so.
So I was just looking at that. That's one of my questions. Why is we getting so many change orders?
Oh. Yeah, you always hope to minimize change orders or to avoid them altogether. So on a building project of this magnitude, you do need to expect there's gonna be some change orders. That's why there's a contingency of 5%, which is a fairly common number that ultimately in the project they say 5% is a reasonable number. Some projects will go 10% over or be under 3%. So in this case, this change order number 11 request is one of the larger change order dollar amounts we've had. What this is that when the project was bid out, there's the wet sprinkler system in the majority of the building. The one area that was supposed to be bid out without having a wet sprinkler system, a clean agent fire suppression system is what they call it, was supposed to be in the records retention files. So this is the area where we have a lot of our all of our old plans for our projects, right away that was acquired. So there's a lot of right away that the county has that was purchased back in the 1920s to 1960s that were never formally recorded at the recorder's office, and they're not even in recordable format. So both parties agreed to it. The landowners were paid, but maybe they didn't collect all the signatures. Maybe it wasn't notarized. So the only copy of that documentation is at the highway department. It's in our vault. And so we don't want to have that stuff getting wet. So this room is going to have a bunch of paper. When the project went out to bid, they put the clean agent fire suppression system in the
Tech room.
the IT room instead of in the records room. IT room is 10 by 10. The records room, I don't know the exact footprint of it, but it's probably 3 times that size. So it's a lot bigger room, it's a lot bigger area, and the dry system is more expensive than the wet system. So that's what this cost is. They said it's $22,000 to add the sprinkler system or to swap it where you have the wet system in the IT room, dry system in the records room. It would have been $35,000 to have both rooms with the dry system. Speaking with IT and the architect and stuff, they said there's no benefit of having the IT room be dry. They said 90% of the IT rooms are wet systems.
I think I already missed.
To have the $22,000 change order for the records room only.
Explains it.
There's one thing though I don't have a problem with the change order, but there's a 10% contingency fee for change orders through Weezer Brothers. And this was actually missed by, I believe, by them because it was made fully aware that this was supposed to be a dry system here in this room. Somehow along the line, they didn't get it right. So I feel we should hold back that fee, that 10%, and talk to them about it. Go ahead with the 22 change order.
Would be a change order less 235.
I think what Commissioner Johnson's referring to is change order less $2,200
Right.
off the contractor's fees dollar amount. So we have 2 things with that. One thing is that the contract says for all change orders, user can add on a 10% contractor's fee, so that's in the contract. What makes this one a little bit different or unique is that a month and a half before the project was bid out, or this component of the project was bid out, we we had a meeting that involved 2 commissioners, myself, a couple of my staff, 3 individuals from Weezer Brothers, 2 individuals from the architectural firm that was on that meeting, and it was noted that the records retention room was going to be a dry system. And I can pull up the exact language if you want it. I did send it on last week. But it said essentially it's a very important room that they, records need to remain dry. So
What's this 235 on here for Weezer Brothers then?
I'm not sure what you're referring to on the,
Change, that's the only saw.
yeah, so,
That's what I saw. I didn't see the 10%.
The contractor's fee is at 10%?
yeah, so the contract fees. So this change, there's some Kitchen Sons electric stuff dealing with swapping between electric service and natural gas service. So I would say, Weezer Brothers, that 10% should be able to mark up onto that Kitchen Sons and the labor total of Weezer's portion of this change order. But it's the Viking automatic sprinkler, 22,000 that if you look at withholding that 10%, that is what I would say you want to pursue.
Okay,
I forgot about the 10%.
Yep.
So this 235 on this change order has to do with some extra labor they're going to have to do because of it. And we're discussing the change order fee is what we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, and that 10%, just because they have their management and their staff time that's dealing with the change order to make sure everything happens correctly.
well, I'd make a motion to approve the change order of the 22,000 minus the 10% change order or management fee.
On the entire change order or on just that portion?
The 22,000. Yep, on the whole thing.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the change order, excluding the contractor's fee, the 10% fee for the contractor, on the basis that it should have been included in the first place.
And now that's not, it's the construction management,
Construction management.
Yep. not the contractor.
Okay.
but if it's in the contract, can we do that? I'm just
Well,
asking.
We can do it if we want.
We
to.
can do it if we want to, and we can negotiate and talk to them afterwards, but I don't think we should approve that fee.
Okay,
I think we should just, it isn't the Viking sprinklers' fault that this happened, so.
Clarify this, then a month and a half prior to bid letting, there was discussion about this already, so it was a known factor
Yep.
in advance.
okay.
Even if they had that advance, they knew about it. I think they should be,
Yeah, there was a mix-up.
you know.
Okay,
Is this the contractor or is this the,
The construction management part that let
Yeah.
out bids.
but I'm just trying to think of who dropped the ball. Was it the ones above, the architects?
So the architect's contract is a subcontractor to the construction manager, which is Weezer Brothers. So it all flows through Weezer Brothers.
Okay.
So if you withhold that, then that could be that discussion between Weezer and their subcontractor. That's between those two.
All right.
The exact language I did get it pulled up from September 29th or September 25th, 2020 meeting said permanent record storage, very important old files, dry sprinkler system, and 2-hour firewall/ceiling.
Okay, so it was discussed and not taken care of.
And it was noted in there.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second, further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Those opposed, same sign. This is not to say that Weezer Brothers can come back.
right.
So what I will do, I will take this to Weezer Brothers and I'll explain to them.
okay.
Next action item is consider ending the county's emergency declaration due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
So the governor has ended the COVID emergency declaration for the state, correct?
Yes.
So there's no reason for the county to have an emergency declaration as well, correct?
Correct. We just needed to save it for an action item.
Right.
We had discussion already.
Is there a form or a format that we have to have, or can we just do this
I think we
and say
can,
we're done?
I think we can just make a motion to
To end
end
the
it so that it
emergency.
goes off the website.
So that's the action that would happen after this, it'll be taken off the website. What other things, what about public notices and all this stuff? Does that stay the same or does that vary? How does that change? Or does it change?
It would just end the emergency declaration, so there's no longer, I don't know, you wouldn't really need to advertise that to the public if it's not, you take it off the website and
It'll be in the minutes. that you ended
and it'll
it.
be in the minutes.
That will be.
And I'm sure the paper will cover it too, so.
So we just make sure we cover all the bases, because when this first started a year ago or more, we did all this stuff and now we want to make sure we undo that. And that's what I'm asking is undoing the stuff that we had to go through.
So all the sign requirements, and mask everything is done.
You got the information more than we do, I do.
Well, you could still say that, you could still keep the signs if you wanted and say that you're still following the CDC guidelines, but this is just ending the county's specific.
Emergency declaration.
The only reason I ask is because when it was declared in last year, you had a 3-page emergency declaration that you signed. There's no,
Oh, when the governor, when the governor ended his, there was no big fanfare. I mean, it was just, and it was just, yeah,
That's right.
there was no big, that I saw.
no, okay.
I move to follow the governor's deal of ending the emergency declaration
For Houston County.
for Houston County.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to end Houston County's emergency declaration due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we move on to discussion items. First one is discuss planning and zoning office. Greg, sure, you brought it.
All right. You first.
You put your name on it.
It says my-
You're the one who researched it.
Amelia did tell me yesterday she wanted to be here for the discussion, so I don't know if we should go grab her or,
Yeah.
I have no problem with that, I guess.
okay,
Okay, easy.
if you don't mind, thank you.
Go to your part, Bob.
Okay. As far as the board updates, we have received, I don't know if you've seen them yet, Tess sent us the plans for the steps.
Yep.
To look at.
Winston.
We don't have all the particulars as far as the specifications for the town. But what the steps design was to look at and what they were gonna be made like. Now, Brian, you saw those? You saw the steps, plans for the courthouse?
Yes.
And they look okay to you?
Yep, they look reasonable.
So,
Well, these plans have been out for a while, but there still is no formal RFP.
there is no request for proposal. Well, Tessa will explain that, but there's still something that they have to change as an alternate on the steps. Remember we talked about making them look like brick or block on the outside
Yeah.
and change the color?
Yeah.
So the architect has got to put that in as an alternate, and then it'll be ready.
An option.
As an option. So I would anticipate sometime this week, unless we have an issue with the plans as presented, it will go up for RFPs. I just briefly looked at the plans and don't see any
No problems that I saw.
issues. Basic steps with rebar and whatnot, and then the foundation. So it's either a basic concrete step or with the alternate to change, to put add color and make it look like blocks.
Stamped.
It's
Stamped.
stamped on the outside. It should be ready to go. That's one thing.
We have no bids or nothing like that yet.
Not yet, hasn't gone out for proposal yet, waiting for that change, but once that comes, we can send them out. But we weren't gonna do that until we'd all seen the plans. So now we've got them. If anybody's got an issue with it, then that's, no, before they go out is the time to get that squared away. One other thing I was gonna mention as far as going through the vouchers for this last month. See that to Seven Rivers Recycling, we paid like $2,678 for mattresses. There's 197 mattresses that we sent out, so although we're taking in $800 or $900, we're spending $2,700 to get rid of them.
Right.
So
Is
a
there
lot
rates
of
for
our,
it?
our fees. The question is, how much do you charge to cover the fee versus the fear of having mattresses show up in the ditches?
Exactly.
And it's a service, but it's getting more costly to get rid of than the fees shows.
It's the same way for tires too.
Tires.
Everything.
But that's why we switched it to $2 a tire instead of the first 4 for free. Because
Mhm.
people would bring 4 a day to get rid of their tires. So now it's covering some of the costs, but the issue being that we don't want to get stuff in the ditches. So
Right.
it's just something I'm bringing to your attention from the perspective of how come that aspect of the waste recycling is coming back to haunt us a little bit.
I did do a little research on some of the things for recycling. And like our brochure in 18 and 19, we spent $2,260 by ourselves, doing it ourselves. And when we went with La Crosse County, in 21, it was only $341.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit more in 20, but we're going down county. La Crosse County, I mean. So we are saving $1,500 there. Also, our SCORE grant, which the last I had from 20 was $69,000. Carol looked it up yesterday for me. We get $67,728 from the state for SCORE grant. And also, Carol, didn't you say there was also something coming from Winona County, a stipend? I don't know what that is exactly, but
Right, we get a stipend from Winona County. And I think last year we didn't get it, so that came in at the beginning of this year.
okay.
And so we'll kind of be doubling up this year. And I don't know exactly what that's for. That would be,
Amelia, you want to come forward?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're ready. I guess at risk of giving you the wrong answer, I would rather look at it to double check on what that payment is actually for.
Yeah, that one puzzled me too. I don't know why, but what?
Yeah, I don't know. I know the SCORE grant.
How much was it, Carol? Do you have a night figure
around $4,000.
or? Okay.
See, some of that offsets our service as far as mattresses and tires and, we're not out to make money, we're a service.
Right.
And so I was kind of checking to see where some of our incomes are coming from that we can use to bring down our expenses. Remember, we talked about we have to cut the cost a little bit. We could use that SCORE grant and we can use some stipend, and also don't we get one other thing? Oh, the credit from La Crosse County of $19,000. Some, I got that figure somewhere here too. That we can use for hazardous waste. And they are coming August 14th to La Crescent, I see. And then they were saying that, according to Holly, that our count is down quite a bit. So they thought maybe they could do a county day in La Crosse, and we could all go over to La Crosse with our hazardous waste rather than paying our employees and people So that's something we need to consider for next year.
Yeah, because I don't think they want to come back over here for next year, do they?
Well, that was my original understanding, but there was some miscommunication there, and I guess Holly said they are willing to come back here. They pretty much eliminated all of their remote days that they do around the La Crosse area, but
Yeah.
they would continue to come back. The price has just gotten to be a lot to bring them over here.
Right,
That they offered having 2 Houston County days where
at their
yeah,
site.
over at their site when they're closed down, everybody else, that they would just let our residents come over. But I know I've kind of thrown that out at, Bob and I talked to some township officers, and it sounded like people weren't really willing to drive that far.
We're not, if people don't want to go to,
They don't want to go over there.
but we could maybe do one in La Crosse County and one here, you know,
Yeah.
Yep.
That'd be worth a try
for next year.
to get them to,
So that would cut us a little expenses, even though the part of that comes out of the 19,000
right.
credit we have.
Mhm.
So it's,
But they wouldn't have to have a Caledonia Day over in La Crosse County.
It'd be Houston County Day.
Or Houston, sorry. Houston County Day over La Crosse County. Because people, we can go there anytime, right?
They're daily.
Yeah, we
You can during the week during their normal hours, but this would be a Saturday when they were typically
Okay.
closed.
Right.
All right.
Because I think they must have certain Saturdays where they're open for themselves or for other counties. So they just pick one that's, planned to be closed and then just make it for only Houston County residents only.
So it'd be just specific for us,
yeah.
for Houston County residents to bring their hazardous waste.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
I don't think it would be. I mean, you can make a trip out of it and then you can go Fleet Farm or whatever
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
rest of the day or whatever,
It's an option.
Go one place
just
and get
get-
rid of your hazardous waste, go another place and pick it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
For next
Anyway, I
time.
was trying to gather information on some incomes that the department does get and bring up the idea of one way we could save money by having only one hazardous waste day in the county and the other one with La Crosse County
Sure.
for next year. It's just an idea that
Well, that
I'm
would
trying
be-
to research a little bit.
Yeah, that would be good.
I got a list of our haulers from Holly. So
they added one
8 of them, we added one, yes.
Registered haulers.
Registered, they are good till December 31st or something like that, so. I'm trying to do a little research on that, but, okay.
So let's back up now that Amelia is here to the planning and zoning office discussion.
Well, I guess what I'd like to do is have the finance committee sit down with Amelia, Holly, and go through the budgets and see where we're at, see where we could tweak this a little here or there to help us out. I see nothing wrong with that, so we know a little bit more of what's going on. You know,
Okay.
like you just had a bunch of questions, we could pick through that and find out where we could save something.
It really helps to get the information financially.
That's kind of what I wanted to bring up for today was maybe we should wait another week or two till all of June's in so we can use 6 months to see where everything's at.
That's fine. I'm fine with that as far as having the finance committee look over with the,
I mean, maybe, I don't know much about the contracts. How are we doing with those?
You're looking more as far as the solid waste and recycling programs
yeah,
and,
yeah.
okay.
Just something that, maybe we can go in there and tweak it a little bit. Maybe we can change something and make it work better, make it easier for our people. Maybe, I mean, just stuff like that. I'm sure we'll find some stuff, but I mean, it's something I think we need to do right now. And like contracts, do you know much about that? Maybe we should bring like Rick Frank in to explain them contracts to us. And-
Yeah, and I guess I thought that was kind of where the group that Bob is kind of spearheading, looking at long-term planning for programs. I guess I envisioned that being more what they were looking at for options. But yeah, we could, I haven't had a chance to look into those at all. So we could probably do that.
Just, it's an idea. I mean, that way we might find some places like Teresa's been digging here now and she's finding out stuff. Maybe we can save a little bit here or there.
The solid waste and recycling program, we're looking
Yeah.
at that part there. Okay.
I mean, I think that's where we need to do the financing part of it right now, for now, because if we can get that come out in the black at the end of the year, that's our goal.
I don't think we'll ever get it to
We'll
the
never,
black.
we'll never do that. We're a service.
We'll probably never get it there, but.
But it
maybe
used
we
to
can
be in
get
the black.
close. We used to be real close all the time. Years
The
ago.
markets have changed.
Till the market's-
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
Actually, some of the markets are picking up again, but
yeah,
that's where you need to look at those contracts and see if you can do some renegotiating, or if you can't, or whatever, it'd be a good idea just to sift through that and look at that again. And, we all can't do it as a board, so if you could have you,
Finance committee.
yep, do it.
And Carol probably has that, working with Holly, Amelia.
Yeah, I think Holly just said yesterday that, I forget what company it was, but they take our commingled recycling and our paper products, and the cost, or we actually we're gonna get a $25 check back. Hasn't been the case
Oh, that'll
recently,
help.
so, she was kind of excited about that, but,
Every bit of.
so something may be improving, but
I see aluminum's from 10 cents to 15 cents.
Oh, she's climbing.
Oh, yeah, big jump there when it used to be 50 and 60 several years ago.
that's kind of what I
It's a
was looking
50%
at.
increase.
Okay.
And I don't know what the personnel committees come up with for how they want to change this or whatever. I don't know what they got planned there.
We haven't actually come up with things. The two of
We
us
just had the
are,
discussion with Soil and Water about them taking
Taking
over
over.
the feedlots and septic, but it's still in conversation stage. Last Tess said that she was going to sit down with Amelia to come up with a plan, numbers and costs and that, so that's where that's at.
And I guess since you guys are all here and you were planning on discussing things this morning anyway, if you want, I could take the opportunity to kind of explain how the department is organized, and maybe on what we were kind of, some of the job duties we have and how that was laid out. If you guys want to take a little bit of time to do so.
Yes.
I meant to get numbers, but I was kind of working with our Schneider rep was here today, and so I got caught up talking to him and didn't get a chance to grab those. I don't know if Tess has those on hand or anything right now, but I can at least give you a little bit of a breakdown.
sounds good.
I think so. Obviously I haven't been, I started in 2018. So before that, it was my understanding that the kind of the organization of the department was, the former director Frank was the department head, and his focus at that time was solid waste. And then he did do a lot of the septic work. He had a full-time tech clerk under him, and then there was also a zoning administrator with a part-time tech clerk at that time. So that was about 5 years ago, I think. In 2017, they looked at taking on the feedlot program and created an environmental specialist position. I started in January of 2018. The idea with that is that the position was written to be primarily feedlots. 70% of your time was devoted to that grant. In addition to that, they resurrected the Ag Inspector program, which does seed sampling. You kind of work as a local partner with MDA. For instance, when we had these Palmer sites, we've had 2 Palmer sites in Houston County. They all came to me first, and then I made the connections there. After that, I don't get involved much, but they do keep me in the loop. But then you're doing outreach for townships and kind of helping them out with issues. I have worked with a couple of them over the last few years to try to deal with things. And then I've been able to get some grant funds through that program as well. We purchased a sprayer for Houston Township, and we've done some work on a couple other larger projects with Oriental Bittersweets and Japanese hops to help the Department of Ag out. So that was a program that had not been really touched prior to that. It is a mandated program, but you can kind of prioritize it how you want. But I do think it's a good person, local partner to have within the county. And then on top of that, that environmental specialist does zoning work. It's mid-level work, so you're helping with owner, land building permits. And then the big one was assisting with public hearings and the staff reports and working through the hearing process as well. And so after that position was added, or I worked with Director Frank or under him for a little while, but when he retired, we kind of flip-flopped the departments, and since our institutional knowledge was in the zoning administrator with Aaron, he ended up taking over the department head role at that time. And so then it was him and myself working in zoning, and then a tech clerk. And then on the opposite side, they kind of revamped the solid waste program and made it more of a, I think her title was solid waste coordinator position at that time. And then kind of let that tech clerk position, or she kind of absorbed that tech, or the tech clerk job within that. And then at that point, since Rick had handled a lot of our septic systems, they've worked to hire another environmental specialist. The job descriptions are mirror images, except for that person was 70% septic systems or septic work, while I was 70% feedlot. And so we had that going for a little while. And now obviously in the last 2 years, we've had people leaving for various reasons, but so we lost our solid waste person, which now that has kind of been, you guys just approved that a couple weeks ago, into office manager position now. And so she handles all the Holly got that, and she handles all the solid waste work. And then that left her tech clerk position open. You also approved that on that same day, so we now have that tech clerk position filled. I have recently taken on the zoning administrator and interim department head duties, which leaves now 2 environmental specialist openings within our office. So I guess at this point, we need to figure out what you want to do long-term with the interim department head position, and then also with that, or with the environmental specialist septic vacancy. And then I guess that feedlot position is kind of up in the air depending upon how things are moved around. One thing to keep in mind too, as the real value in this feedlot or these environmental specialist positions is that they can assist with zoning work. In November of 2019, I believe it was, the Crescent Township had taken care of all of their own zoning at one point, and then their zoning administrators wanted them to retire, and so they actually handed it to the county. And so we've taken on a large number of permits from Lula Crescent area, and a lot of our hearings have come from the Lula Crescent area. Granted, July hearings will be a combination of June or what was supposed to be June and July, but 5 out of our 9 hearings this month are from Lula Crescent Township. So that's really added in, or really increased the demand on zoning work.
I have one point of clarification on the,
You're not going to be heard on the tape from back there.
just real quickly, just the previous to Rick leaving, the zoning administrator's job was, and this goes back to 2012, was 1/3 feedlots and 1/3 septic, although the septic was septic in training at that time. And then as the responsibilities grew in land use permits and zoning, that is about the same time that Rick was leaving. And then well, Rick hadn't left yet, but that was, Rick was looking at all of this, and that was its time to make a determination that there was a lot more work there. So it goes back further than 18, it goes back further. to 12 that I'm familiar with, and it may go back further than that.
The feedlot didn't start till the 18th.
No, that's,
Well, from what my understanding is, the actual like boots on the ground work was contracted out. That got submitted back to the county. We input the data. I believe the county did all the permitting and enforcement, like did a majority of the program. So yeah, some of it was contracted out, but we still had a portion of that to do.
Responsibility part.
Yeah.
well, and more than that, it was actually a significant portion of the job description of your predecessor. So that was there.
I don't like that setup because if somebody's gonna go out and do all the work, they should also input all the data. It's difficult for another person to know what they were thinking.
They'd have to do it all,
Yeah, I think it would have to.
all or nothing.
We also, at the county, retain the liability on it. It's, we're the ones signing the contracts with the state. So every year we submit reports on what we did. They actually pull our work and look at it and grade us essentially. And we have to meet minimum standards or our funding, they could potentially hold our funding or there would be some kind of penalty. So we do have some liability. There's no way we can totally hand over a program. We do have to have somebody at the county that is responsible for it. It does not have to be our office.
It'd be the county as a whole.
It has to be somebody within the county has to sign off on permits and has to sign our delegation agreements and everything.
That's gotta be done no matter who does it.
Right, right.
I think it's important keeping this person within our staff gets us so much more support. You're supporting all the zoning office. Otherwise, it's too much work for one person to handle. And but having the feedlot program or the septic program there rounds out a job description and keeps that work within our office.
So you're talking hiring one person to do both of them jobs?
I guess
I
I don't
think
know.
what
We
we'd have to-
currently have two, so I don't.
I think we'd have to consider she's interim right now. We eventually will have to advertise for a zoning administrator or department head. And then if Amelia can apply for it, other people can apply for it. We have to make a choice there. And then we would have an opening, which we do have, for an environmental specialist. That could help zoning. It could help throughout the whole office. We're still down one person. Well, 4 people would be able to handle it, I think.
Yeah, we may still have to contract out with the septic work. Being that's a licensing program, I think that's gonna be a harder thing to fill. The feedlot work, yeah, we do have to train staff. MPCA, actually, they commit when we sign that delegation agreement, they commit to taking on a lot of that training. Granted, you're working in the same office, you're gonna answer questions and help that new person a little bit. But MPCA is actually, they set that time aside to train our staff. And a lot of that has gone to online with COVID. I actually helped in building that, in the latter stages of building that training program, and it's very good. I learned a lot from doing that. It was a program that wasn't available to myself, so I think it will be really beneficial. And then 2, we're committing to doing 18 continuing education credits for that feedlot program every year anyway. So there's still a component of training, even when you've been there for a number of years. And then as far as like the department head, I'm told that it's most cost effective to do the department head and like a zoning administrative position as what was there. And so I don't know if you guys want to look at how you're going to fill that one before you pursue the other one, or
See, that's where we gotta sit down and have a discussion as personnel committee on how that's going to be described.
Yeah,
because things have changed since Holly's taken over a lot of the other duties for solid waste. So that whole job description is going to have to be revamped and looked at.
on the director position?
Yep.
I don't know that, so my understanding, her position is more of a mid-level, so you're still looking at department long-term planning. You're still looking at, even a lot of the contracts, I think will still be on within the director's responsibilities. So I'm not sure how much, and then there's a lot on the zoning side too, if you keep the combined positions. So I don't know how much it will affect it, but yeah. just to see
But
if
we'll
there's
have to
some
look at
overlap.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have to study that and look at that, yeah.
So let's say we put in like planning and zoning, that'd be a new title instead of the environmental director. We eliminate the environmental director, make it planning and zoning. You could be the head, you could be in charge of it or
Department
We
whatever.
have to apply for
Apply
it.
for it,
Yeah.
whatever, and then we could break the solid waste off into another compartment with you being the overseer. And then we could take and temporarily give the feedlot and the septic to soil and water until we get through this budget and finances and check it all out. And then we'll see if we can hire somebody, and then we can bring them stuff back. Otherwise, you're gonna get overloaded. You got so much zoning going on and stuff, and we need ordinances changed. You got a lot of work on your hands.
Well, we have a couple of process issues that we have to address as well. And one is which involve both our equal opportunity and employment processes, the way we fill vacancies, as well as making sure we're in compliance not only with the spirit of that, but also as that is reflected in our labor union agreements, which the discussion here impacts two different unions. Currently we have an opening in septics. We also currently, not an opening, a vacancy, excuse me, in septics. Currently we have a vacancy at the department head level. In the past, when we have vacancies, yes, we do look at attrition and how we can collapse expertise and positions into one potentially, and then make that appointment. This is not where we are collapsing the position of that Amelia holds as the feedlot officer into another position, but rather taking that whole position and removing it potentially, and then saying, okay, we'll put you over here in this other position. That may be where you would like to end up at the end of the day. However, that is should be a competitive search for whoever that is. That is not something that, and my apologies for talking about your background, but that you have grown into, certainly are performing the duties quite well. That's not the issue. The issue is that we have a vacancy and we have just filled the gap, if you will, with a temporary interim. So our own policies dictate that we have an equal opportunity search. I also want to state that in looking at all of this, there are and Amelia talked about it, there are a lot of duties that were listed in both the septic side as well as on the feedlot side that were significant, that you would still be looking at an environmental specialist to cover. Then the question becomes, how do you pay to cover that position? So Amelia and I discussed yesterday, had a brief, not so brief conversation about here's what we have in grant income, here's what we're spending it on, but if we send that grant income out, then we're going to be seeking other funds to fill for those other environmental services specialists. The department head duties are not going away. The planning and zoning duties are not going away. The oversight at the policy level for solid waste are not going away. Therefore, I do not see any reason to reclassify, require reclassification of the department head position. That position has, I believe, is properly classified. So we know, at least from an HR perspective, I believe strongly we need that department head to be filled. How our process is that comes with a competitive process. When you have an interim in place and the person is actually temporarily working out of class from another total job description.
So how do you, when you say that it's, the description isn't changed, but we're contracting out 2 services right now with septic, with G Cubed, and Winona County with feedlots. And you're saying that description's still the same?
Oversight for that, the decisions for that, the review of whether those services are adequate or appropriate.
So those contract services are looked as
And
employees?
those right now are temporary. They are not anything that's, they're temporary. I believe they expire at the end of this year, just because we have this exodus, if you will. But those are, and even if there were new agreements in place, whatever those agreements might be, you still have to have a department head that is overseeing whether they are and making some kind of, having oversight of those programs. So Amelia reaffirmed for us, as she does at each meeting, that the county is ultimately responsible. That I do not understand to be a rubber stamp, but I understand that to be a review of the reports and the things that are submitted so that there is, so it's a knowing signature.
Well, you're gonna have to go through GQs, you're gonna have to go through Winona counties, you're gonna have to go through all that no matter who does it, so.
Well, that's
She's
my
got a-
point, Commissioner.
Yeah, I
That's
know,
my point on the department head. That's what a department head
yeah,
is.
and we know that she's gonna be on the head of it, so. She should
Well,
be if
that's
she
not
gets,
necessarily this person. This person is currently working out of class in a totally different job description from what was before. Our process is, you're interim, you compete for the job. I think she is a very well qualified, well positioned, if you will, applicant, should she choose to even apply for the position. That is, those are other decisions, but
We have to do an equal opportunity search.
do you have a position that's open? I haven't heard anything that would say that, other than an opinion, I haven't heard anything that would change those duties of that department head, and we request that.
So the reclassification of the solid waste office manager, that won't change the department head?
I thought that's what Holly was just up, give a raise to be the department head of solid waste.
No, she's not a department head, she's,
Lead.
She's an
a
office
lead.
manager is what her
Yeah.
job description
Well,
is.
and all of the supervision, ultimately, the supervision
Amelia's
of all the
over her.
staff
Yeah.
also falls back. And supervision is a higher level duty as well. So the supervision, we can't neglect that. That involves the coaching and making sure training is appropriate and in place. It is,
So in your opinion, there's no overlapping with the office manager position versus the environmental services director?
I don't believe they overlap at all. The office manager reports to the department head. Responsible to that person. Much like you have, I'll give you an example, I'm not picking on an office, but let's say you have the sheriff's office, And I bring that up, obviously, because of Mr. Commissioner Severson's background. But you have a sheriff, albeit an elected position, but it is a department head level position. And you have chief deputy. That chief deputy does an awful lot in that department, but that chief deputy is not responsible for that department to the degree the department is. They're responsible for a segment of a program, which they would discuss policy, and potentially it's difficult for any of us to see what 5-10 years from now looks like, because the speed of change anymore is pretty incredible as far as technology, but as far as program offerings and what statutory compliance and changes coming down the pipe and all of that. There's a lot that a department head actually has to oversee.
So either way, we have to do a search for a department head, planning and zoning department.
That is my recommendation.
And then if Amelia gets it, then we can assess whether we need to do something different with environmental specialists. If she doesn't get it, does she lose her job? You know, if we give it away?
No.
Well, that's where
I'm
we
just
have,
throwing it out, you know?
that's where we have to say, the debate,
We have to
debate
start
here,
with
the debate here is
department.
all about whether we want to contract our services for feedlot and soil and, with soil and water and the septic inspections.
I think, but we have to start with getting a department head.
No, because then you just said it. If we do, if that happens and we hire somebody else, then I guess we're gonna have a internal feedlot officer. Because Amelia was.
Well, we have to start with
So
a department.
what
head.
I'm saying is we're contracting those services out now with Winona County
To help.
and G Cubed. They're doing all the work. Why not look at soil and water to take that over for us to do that work versus G Cubed or
And then we can,
Winona County.
then if we want to, we can hire somebody to help Amelia with the zoning. If she's getting a lot of zoning from the present, she could use some help there.
But where is that funding coming from then? If we don't, that's all
Doesn't come through.
county money.
Well, I mean, you gotta look at, it. Do we hire somebody and pay them $70,000 in benefits and 401k? Or do we turn it over to feedlot and see what the difference is? Maybe we can have them do it cheaper than hiring somebody.
Well, we
already hired one person.
numbers. The grant covers for a whole position, which cover, not the grant portion, but our contribution.
39,000 is the grant. That isn't gonna cover a position.
No, but when we talked with Soil and Water, they specifically said they were looking at the whole amount, not just the 39,000 in order to do it, or it would be at a loss to them as well. And so, the other thing I wanted to mention was that, so we get a lot more out of the position rather than just feedlot. We get a lot out of that position. For the same money, we would be, I believe, paying more as a county, splitting it up. The other thing I will mention that I don't know the answer to this right now, but want something that is in the forefront of my thinking is, we are talking about 2 AFSCME positions. And although we are contracting out on a temporary basis, because we have no other options right now, we don't have seats in the chair, so to speak. I think we have to give consideration to whether the legal ability we may have, I don't know what it is, I am checking on that right now, as to whether we can just start contracting out our positions that are on the books, including one that is currently occupied by an employee.
Did we advertise for a septic inspector?
We advertised for one with certification.
Right,
I
and
actually previously we
And that yielded, that yielded no applicants?
We took our job description, which said septic license within 2 years of date of hire, which is what our job description was for septic. And we had altered it to see if we could get anyone who actually had a license and came, ready, boots on the ground, certified license in hand.
Right.
And you are correct, we did not get any.
So wouldn't that clear us from the union portion of the,
It is certainly goes in our favor. I don't know if I can say clears us or not, but it certainly is something that is a factual consideration that I think we would need to be made.
I think that we're, getting into a lot of discussion and what do we get first, and we have not advertised for the head of this department, have we not?
We have not.
And I feel if we get, and hopefully it'll be me, maybe somebody else, but we should get somebody in who's gonna lead this department, who is gonna look at how are we gonna run this. And we're talking about a lot of ifs here, and I'm trying to catch up because of my short tenure here, but I feel that in order to do it correctly, it'd be a whole lot easier for her, if she's the lead, to say, all right, no, I can adjust now. Right now, she's doing two things. And so I think let's get the horse before the cart, or whatever you want to call it, to go forward, because we're getting into a lot of discussion, and if we're going to vote on certain things right today, this is the information I have. But if I had a new lead, this is going to be the way I like to run it, maybe somebody will come in with different answers. And I think that's important before we get into all this other stuff and start divvying it out and throwing funds one way or the other.
I guess to that point, and then to both of your guys before, I think, well, we do need to approach the director and get that posted and figure out a direction there. I think it's important for transparency of your future workload that we figure out the direction kind of on the same degree of what, are we filling another position within the office? Are we bringing another body in? Because I don't know that working with 3 people is sustainable for very long.
No, it's not. It's not.
So we need to.
so what
At
you're
the same
asking is
time-
that we should consider the feedlot officer position before we hire a environmental services director?
We kind of need to look at them, I guess, together. I know it probably makes no sense, but,
How is someone supposed to know if they want to apply to a position if they don't know how the department is going to be structured?
correct.
So we need to.
That's where I'm coming from, is that if we were to say as a board that we want to contract our feedlot inspections to soil and water and our sewer inspections to soil and water, that would give us an idea of what our environmental service director description would be. Because that workload will be taken over, would be contracted out.
The workload, the director is still over those programs, the director.
But they're not supervising soil and water on the
They are
inspections.
supervising-
And they're not supervising on their reports, their written reports. They would be just looking at the final report at the end of the year. This is what other counties do. They do the feedlot inspections for the county from soil and water. They do everything. Fillmore County does it right now. They do the inspections. They go out and they write out the reports. They fill it in with the MPCA, and at the end of the year, you have a final report that's up for review by the board to approve.
Because of the planning and zoning responsibilities, I still don't see this position changing, because those are significant higher level duties. The feedlot duties actually are more middle and lower duties. So I still see this as being where it is currently rated. We can go out for a search for that.
But you're not supervising the people doing the work.
We still have supervision on the side of the staff in the office and on the side of the.
Well, right. Currently, then they'd have two people under them. They'd have Amy and Holly and whoever's the,
On the side, and then you have the soil, solid waste side. There's supervision there as well.
I think we have to start with a search for a department head.
so
And that's
for like solid waste, who works up the schedules for the job site, that works dump sites?
Holly does that.
That is Holly, but, okay. But you still have evaluations and you still have potential discipline, you still have potential grievance settlements, you still have, there are a lot of other.
So what is Amy Silling going to be doing?
Which would be
Can she
potential
train
for,
to some of this stuff?
Supervisory duties are not B21, Commissioner.
no, but there'd be potential for her to move up
Understand that.
with more responsibilities and duties. I mean,
And then reclassification.
yeah, right, there's just like with Holly, she got a reclassification. Amy could get one too if she had taken on more
To do
responsibilities.
supervisor? That does not.
No, I'm
sorry,
talking
sense.
about helping with Amelia to do zoning work and answering questions.
She's gonna, if she's working on Thursday night, she's doing some of the reports.
That
I
is
guess-
already in the job description,
Correct, that person is,
not just solid waste.
that tech clerk is actually mostly in zoning or in the zoning
Right.
department to do a lot of the hearing work, the minutes, the drafting the orders, all the notices, and getting all that clerical work out.
So this department oversees and they intertwine the zoning and the permitting. They get into the solid waste when there's an issue. And my next question is does soil and water, can they go and get the grants? No, they have to come through the county, correct?
Correct.
So we're involved. So we got to stay involved and involved correctly. And when we start, if I took the information, I wrote it down and I gave it to Eric and he had to try, what does this mean? And then he's trying to put it into a computer to send to PCA. But if I did this, and this, then I know it's done right. He doesn't know if I did it right.
The other thing I think that we should all keep in mind is that we call it a solid waste, we call it a feedlot position and we call it a septic position. Those were environmental service specialists who had the majority of duties up to 70% in feedlots, up to 70% in septic. That still left 30+%, depending upon the week, and 30+%, that still left a whole lot of other work they were doing. And that is the concern that Amelia and I are expressing is all of that work. That is not B21 clerk work. That is B24 environmental service specialist work, that level. And it requires a certain amount of training. Could another person come up eventually to do that? Well, absolutely, all of our employees can move up and learn things as they go. But that is, that would be an abrupt change to Amy's job right now, and that would require considerable training that, quite honestly, this team doesn't have the time or ability to do. Yes, we do have contracts out for the 70% of the duties, if you will, for a feedlot, and for that up to 70% of the duties for septic. But those are temporary because we don't have anybody to fill the positions. We're still looking at positions as a whole and how we can fund that position and all those other duties. And it's not just simply give this over to another.
So are we funding GQ and Winona County through the grant money or out of our own money?
Through our grant money.
So the grant money pays no matter whoever does it. So if we hire somebody, that grant money pays his wages, correct?
But
70%.
We don't have her still short a person.
I guess our county match probably is used first in the feedlot world, but we do eventually get to that grant and we'll utilize that. I guess I'd just like to add too, before we digress, that essentially now our programs are contracted out. G Cubed will turn over deliverables and then I direct a permit, which the organization of that would not change with whomever we contract with. So I have an idea of the sense of time that takes now. Feedlot work, like you said, it's been contracted with Winona County. They're just getting started with it, but I haven't done, aside from a little bit of owner assistance, I haven't had a huge investment in time in that in the past 6 weeks. But the remaining workload that I've taken on is just not, it'd be nice if we had more upper level zoning assistance. I realized that for the summer, my life was gonna be busy, but I don't know if this is something you can expect somebody to take on long term.
Correct.
The whole point of the matter is that we do not have a director. That's the opening that we need in order to cover the overall. We need somebody that is the environmental specialist to do the duties, the 70-30, as far as the feedlot, the septic, what have you. If the reason we have Winona and we have G Cubed is that we were going to do that temporarily while we were looking for somebody to fill the slot necessary to do that work. If we made it a permanent type situation where we gave it over to soil and water, they're doing what's the 70% worth of whatever that person's going to do. So we're still going to have to hire somebody else in the office to take care of the paperwork. They do the work. We still have to review the work. We still have to do the permits. If there is a problem with anything, we're going to be the ones that lose the grant money. So from the perspective of doing it ourselves versus having somebody else do it, I don't see where we're saving any money by putting it out, because we're still going to have the person that can do the extra work and do the 30% that's not being done. We still need people.
Well, this is all taken for granted that we find somebody that could do this work and train him and hopefully stay.
Right.
We debated on this environmental specialist that was going to handle the sewer inspections at that time and was told that we couldn't contract it out for various reasons. Well, then, so we went and hired somebody and trained them, spent $12,000 training them, and then they quit.
In all fairness, Commissioner.
And so excuse me, I'm not done, I'm not finished. So therefore, this is something we have to consider when we're thinking about this, is that the idea of attracting help and retaining help, that should be considered too in this. Here we have somebody, Soil and Water, that is willing to step up. They've come and met with us and they want to do this work. And they're local people that work with our farmers and constituents already. It would be a natural fit. And it's not something new. Other counties do this as well. Goodhue County does it. Fillmore County's doing it. Because Fillmore County just went through the same thing where their guy quit.
They do have theirs posted though too.
And
they didn't have,
they have someone trained in septics just a little bit away from her septic license. We did have 2 other people trained. The department had left for a different position, but we trained that, and that person was with us for quite a while. We trained, if I'm not mistaken, Rick, he was with us for quite a while. We also have a feedlot person sitting right here in the room, and that position has not been vacated. We have trained our own, and we have had significant retention on those we've trained. Yes, we had 1 leave.
Yeah, two.
I think some of the thing has to be, it will be corrected with our new pay equity program we just got done looking at too. People saw that, hey, we're paid $2 here, but I can go over here for $2.50 or whatever. And so I've seen that in a lot of things. I hired a guy, taught him how to drive truck, and then Quick Trip took him. You know, what can I say? They look at the paycheck, they look at the benefits and so on. And maybe the two that left for whatever reasons left, but as I see, it looks like we are keeping a lot too. And the experience is important, and continuity on the reporting system is another issue I look at.
So I think we need to then hire the department head. What are we gonna call it? What are we gonna call that department? How do you wanna, let's start there.
Environmental
Specialist. I mean,
environmental and
department
planning
head.
or something.
It's Environmental Services Director is what it's
Yes.
called.
Covers it
You
all,
wanna leave it at that?
covers it all,
That way there,
for
we
zoning and everything.
We need that whether we
Mhm.
put this out to soil and water or keep it internal, we'll still
Exactly.
need the department.
That's where we gotta go first, get the
Yeah.
department
That's what I
head
said.
hired.
I agree, Greg.
then we can, then you develop your team.
Yeah.
What do I need in my team? I need another specialist or whatever. And that's where I'm looking at is if we have a lead person, then we know what we need below. We need, what do I need for support? And then we can discuss those things then. But I think we've been talking about the vacancy for a couple of 3 weeks or longer, and now we need to kind of go forward, I feel.
Well, we get a department head hired, we got a direction.
Yes,
Yep.
right.
And then
As far as this, whether we transfer to soil or water or not, how much does soil and water cost us for feedlot? How much does soil and water cost us for septic?
Yep, we should get those numbers.
What's it costing us now for Winona County and
600 a septic tank.
G cubed?
For GQ, 600 for every septic.
I don't recall what the hourly rate for Winona was, but it was time and a half for them.
I suppose they got.
I mean, that's what we're supposed to have been happening here, is to come up with numbers here and then come back to the personnel committee to talk about this and then come forward with a recommendation to the board. Except now we're doing it all,
Yeah, I guess I'm sorry I butted in. I
We're-
just
we're-
saw it was on the agenda, so I thought I'd take.
we're
that
doing
off.
it all out here in the open, so that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just saying that this is how it was supposed to be going, I guess, so.
And I wouldn't use your temporary numbers, I'd use your regular numbers so that you have long-term numbers, not short-term fixes. And so it's your long-term numbers we should be looking at.
Either
And that
way.
is inclusive of all costs that would go off. And we have some ideas on that, what those would be.
Either way, we have to do a search for a department head to begin with.
We need to figure out that is really in many ways going to direct us whether we even have an opening to look at on the feedlot side. We don't even know that yet.
So you're gonna use the same description that we have now when we do a search
I
for
think
that?
we'll update it a little bit, but it's pretty general and pretty inclusive, but we can update it a little bit.
Could you send us a copy of that?
Absolutely.
All right.
We gotta start somewhere.
I mean, you have a current job description right now,
Absolutely.
so you could send that right away, right?
It's a little dated, but it's certainly,
Oh, it was in use up until last May, right, when Aaron was here?
we used it until last May, but it had an overarching statement, and then it had more on the solid waste side, and it probably the percentages need to be adjusted as well.
That's what I'm looking for, is that one that we're using up to when Aaron was here last, yeah?
It's the same one we used for your piece.
I'll make a motion that we.
can't-
No, it's not an action item.
Just action time.
Sorry. do one.
was my idea.
consensus, it's a consensus basically that we should move forward with the hiring of the department head. She's gonna send us the job description, then there will be some adjustments made to that job description before we advertise.
Well, and I understand I have to come back to the board and seek permission to advertise.
Right, that's an action item.
Start the preliminary part to get all the stuff together so we can see it, and then do the action at the next regular meeting.
So we're gonna go back to where you're gonna bring it to the personnel committee, we'll discuss it, and then we'll move
I
forward to
can
bring it.
email it to everybody at once.
Need to go to personnel, I mean, we're all talking.
That's what usually happens, but if you wanna change it now, I guess that's the way it's looking.
I
Well,
think-
personnel does not have a history of reviewing job descriptions. Personnel is primarily negotiations, looking at whether we have major changes within a department, but like such as when the integration of public health and human services and things of that nature.
Well, so that we should be involved with this. This is a major disruption in the department
Well,
to,
this time, I'm not looking at proposing any disruptions in the department. I'm just forwarding a job description and the position of the department head. I'm not proposing any collapsing of department or expansion of department. Which would be correct, those collapsing and expansions would go.
attrition, collapsing.
Well,
I mean, that's what we had discussions for when we met with Soil and Water.
attrition in and of itself, we have departments all across the county that reformulate positions, if you will, where we look at the best way to deliver the services. They, sometimes it's very minor. Like I said, if it was major, such as for the public health, it went through that committee, as well as seeing how we work with staffing. That didn't.
So when we added a
more of
fifth,
a policy determination that's done by the board on those.
when we added a fifth assessor, that came through personnel committee, right?
Change.
I did bring it to the personnel committee because for the addition, and actually, thank you for bringing that up. The Board of Commissioners, a couple of years back, said the addition of all new positions that are new money and new positions shall go through the personnel committee. So. I think
So,
that you are
but it doesn't go through personnel if you were to eliminate a position or to
But it hasn't.
contract a service out.
It hasn't gone, it normally goes through the department head, and there's a discussion in their committee as well as with HR, and we come up with a recommendation unless there's an issue. HR doesn't bring it to a committee. It usually goes through the committee that the individual department is a part of.
Well, I think that you guys should sit down with the personnel and tweak what you want to put in there. Get everything in there the way you want it for a job description. You said you wanted to tweak it a little bit.
Well, I work with the department head, and I will make like a minor amendments. I run it through the department head verifies that is the workload, that's what's being done. This is,
I think you should
and
send
that's
it
how
to
we
all
do
of us.
all of our de-
so we
that's how
all
do
see it.
all of our
I'm fine with that.
departments.
Yeah,
This would
too,
be
it's
to
easier.
this department differently.
I don't have a problem with sending it to all of us. That's
Yeah.
not my problem, but I would like to have a meeting with the personnel committee to,
We can always meet, Commissioner.
right,
For what purpose? though?
to discuss what the search for a job, because we had a meeting and there was a proposal by HR to hire an environmental specialist, not a service, not the environmental service director, environmental specialist. It was discussed then that we should talk to Soil and Water about contracting some of that work. So that was part of the situation, so.
And now we're just talking about the department head itself,
Exactly.
Right.
starting with that.
Okay.
Tweaking the
It
description.
seems like our processes are getting
Cumbersome.
Anyway,
cumbersome. Normally, we have a vacancy, we determine what, if we need that position. This is a department head, we've talked about that. We know that for sure is needed. And that's where we're at. And we're going to really overload the staff there if we don't move forward.
Correct.
Already overloaded.
Yes, it is.
But send us copies of the job description. We can review those when you know what you are thinking as far as HR, as far as changes to the job description. And we as a board can discuss that before.
Send you both as disposition reports.
And how about what we originally started this whole thing about was financing in the solid waste and recycling program. The finance thereof is what was asked. So we can kind of see some of the ins and outs. Again, I'm kind of new at this, but I'm trying to figure the numbers that helped, and then we can determine. I think it's important we go forward and get that department back to necessary staff.
You know, once we get in there and we might be able to tweak it and get more money coming in somehow, we can afford to hire some more people, you know, it's something we gotta look at. We can do new contracts and create more money, great, or whatever, you know, it's something I think we gotta look at, so. When do we wanna set a date for that, Bob? You're the finance committee.
it's up to Carol to get everything together. Yeah.
Now, do you guys want Rick Frank involved in this since he knows a lot about the contracts and stuff? And to help you with maybe down the road with some changes in the ordinances?
I haven't gotten to ordinance changes yet.
Yeah, no, we don't expect you to either, but.
I mean, I guess you can ask him if he's willing to. I know he was sort of hesitant to give people answers on things because he said he's been out of it too long. But he would have a good history of the program.
Well, he built all them contracts, so I'm sure he knows them, and it'd be nice to figure them out so we all know them a little bit.
You mean on the solid waste side?
Yeah, on the solid waste side. I mean, that's the key that we need to get into, and 'cause you can't be losing a ton of money over here, and then we gotta hire more people here, and let's get it straightened out and get going in the right
And I
direction.
think Holly has a lot of knowledge on
Yeah.
that. She has been very involved in that for a considerable period of time. And they have, I believe, if I'm understanding correctly, that they have developed, on the previous department had developed spreadsheets which track all the waste streams and tie the cost and timing to those waste streams, and they cross-reference and they can, and to the contracts.
Yeah, because she's gonna need a little time to get all this stuff figured out, because we need the incomes from every job
I
site.
think she has it.
That'd be awesome, so we
She's
can.
got a good spreadsheet.
She's
That's
got
good.
it.
Talk to Carol after the meeting and see what time we can schedule. And
So you want Rick Frank included in on this financing thing to help us with these contracts and stuff?
We'll talk
Or
to
do
you.
you
We
want-
can talk to Rick.
Just an idea. I'm trying to get
Thank you.
things going in the right direction.
So, moving on past that discussion, let's do the commissioner reports. Do we?
Well, not too much. We were at the Community Services Committee is before this one, and things are, some systems are going to need to be updated. Talking about budgety things that'll be coming up soon, but the adjustment in the pay equity could affect that department as much as $95,000. The EDMS program or system, it's right now hosted by Winona County. That's Winona County is wanting to end that program. So we're looking at maybe doing our own, possibility of looking at it. Again, that's going to be a possible expense. And so there's things that are happening that we need to be prepared for because of changing times. And I look back at what used to be you know, people were willing to work for $10, $12 an hour. Now it's $20 to drive a bus. And so we gotta be prepared to, in that department, or all departments, I'm sure, but John commented that the bump or the effect of this pay equity could be as much as 95. Two other little things, but the county fair, Rob talked about that, getting ready for the county fair, which kind of got me thinking about something when I was driving the other day. Has there ever been a deal where a county commissioner spent a day at the fair, and where, you know, there's a 5-day fair, and, you know, one day of the fair we are there, and if nothing else, hand out a map or talk to them, or is that something that to consider? You know, because a lot of times it's people might want to talk to us on a local level like that. Just crossed my mind.
Well, personally, I try to go every year,
Yeah,
and I'm out and about and talking to people. I guess we never had nothing formal, like you're talking about a booth in the
booth
building.
or a table, or, you know, and stuff, but
Meet your commissioners.
it's one of those deals, like when I was on the force, I'd go to county fairs as meet the trooper, you know, so
Well, the sheriff does the same thing. He has a,
without that.
Yep, yep.
We could stand in there with
I
Mark.
think in
you
the
know.
past, we've helped
I think we
different
should-
booths. I worked at EDA booth one year when
Well,
they,
You know, sometimes the people don't know who we are,
yeah.
you know.
maybe we should have a dunk tank, and we could
Oh.
participate in that.
Hey, we can get some big
I
money.
think we'd get a lot of people that would love to take a whack at that.
District 1, yes.
I will verify that's true.
District 5 would be competing. They don't want me, but
It was just a thought, maybe
We
it's
could
too,
charge for it and that'd be a source
Oh,
of
yeah.
income.
a charity for whatever, but it was just a thought, and it's probably too late for this year, but I was just kind of thinking that, you know, it's a chance for people who we represent.
I think if we want a booth, they'd find us one.
Well, yeah,
I guarantee
if,
you.
if you guys want to do something like that, we could all take turns for a day or whatever. Something to look into, I guess. I don't know.
But just a thought, found next week is a work session.
I'll check with the fair board and I'll go out to the fair office to find out what it would take to set up a meet your commissioner
Yeah.
table.
But it was
And I'll
just, you know,
report to you on Tuesday.
I may not be here right away on Tuesday. I got a doctor's appointment first thing in the morning. But I'll try and get here, depending upon.
Yeah, I won't be here.
Fine.
I won't be here either, but I think I can go via Zoom, couldn't I?
Yep.
For that, for a workshop session. It's just,
Yeah, I talked to
it's not a
Andy.
rig.
It is a work group session, but we're planning on recording it because there's gonna be some information I think that employees might wanna go back and watch, if I understood Tess correctly. And I think the plan is to do it in this room so that we can use the technology in here.
Well, then I'll just stay off. I
But
won't.
no, I think that would work better in this room for you, just
Oh,
zoom
yeah,
in
right,
on
yep,
the Zoom. So I think that would be fine, but just give Andy a heads up.
Okay.
Donna, we'll probably just run it like a regular meeting.
I think that's about it. You could do the EDA thing. I was having difficulty with that last Wednesday.
Okay. My turn? Well, we had our land use meeting this morning. Mary was there from Recorder, and Tammy and Eric from Surveyor. Donna was there. Amelia came. So we all touched base. Amelia brought up the fact that this coming, I think, was it this coming Thursday or next Thursday? The Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment meetings are doubled up because June's were canceled, so that's gonna go late into the.
The hearings?
Yeah, we should see if we can't get that changed for that later down the road. We can't have that many hearings in one night. We'll be-
Well, that's only because of the June one being canceled, so it's gonna be a long night for them, so. And Brian brought up some specifics about CP Rail wanting to look into crossings in Brownsville and to double check and verify on those. And they
Process changing them?
no, just want to know if they're up to date, recorded, and all that stuff is official crossings and all that too. So they were specifically looking in Brownsville if that Third Street, wasn't it Third Street?
Yeah.
Was vacated or not, because that extended down across the main highway into the sand pit area.
Right.
So. And then Mary talked about there's a third person coming on board. We just approved that in consent agenda. And so welcome Dar back to the fold.
Back in, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. She just can't stay away from the county.
So.
That's a love.
Yeah. And Donna's short-staffed right now too. Polly's out, so they're all busier and busy, so. Meeting. Nothing new in the pipeline as far as, maybe Allison, you want to give us a little update on what we all discussed, but.
Well, just yesterday I submitted a grant for a possible co-working space in the Crescent. It'll
Yep.
hopefully be called Keep Company Co-working, so more on that to come when it finally opens. And then we had some Bluff Country Collaborative updates. So we have some planning for the school this year. We got some grant funding for some soft skills training for the students. And we also got some grant money to do a mentorship program for students where mentors will get paid a $750 stipend. Perkins is actually going to be the fiscal agent for that. And then children will be paired, or students will be paired with a mentor. And we're kind of doing non-traditional roles. So maybe a male that's a nurse or a woman that works in construction, just so students can see a variety of options. Those were some of the main things we discussed at the meeting. Then we are finally going to do our Ascentech closing on their EDA revolving loan that was approved pre-COVID, but the project got backed up. And there'll be a shovel event for that, which I'll invite you all to when we get closer to the date. So.
And they're also looking for another board member to join us.
Yes,
Because we're one short.
that is news. We are looking for another EDA board member. So if anyone in Houston County is interested, they should contact the EDA office.
And then we clarified, it doesn't need to be a business person. It can be open to people of interest.
Correct.
Yep. And then also last week, we had a couple of union negotiations. Basically presented the proposal, wage grid, whatever, and just
I thought they went well, actually.
yeah,
And
first time meeting, a lot of questions, but you know, we're gonna have a lot of questions, so.
the same ones we anticipated, but I really felt the consensus, they like the idea of a one grid for the county. And that's a good starting point.
And you can work off of that.
And then, I assume, Dewey, that's what you were referring to, the 95,000?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's kind of what was the estimate that it could be in that, 50 some people or whatever.
And that just brings me to the, when I look at this things here and as a whole, as a county, I see dark clouds coming as far as revenue and expenses down the road. We're going to lose some revenue here with the jail contract with Winona County eventually coming to an end when they build their new jail. I mean, that's a significant amount of money. I see expenses going up, like Dewey says, with the competitive wages, and the new wage study will address that. That's going to be more expensive in the long run. So that's why where I'm coming from when I talk about trying to consolidate and find other ways of doing the work for the county. If we could do that with less people, less staff, and still get the job done, that's where I'm coming from. You know, I'm just worried about, we're gonna have to have some sharp increases if, in the budget levy here, if we don't try to find ways to foresee some of these things, problems coming down the road, so. That's my 2 cents worth. I'm done.
Teresa.
Well, I gave you all the information on all my research for the recycling department and income and expenses as far as the brochure and everything. Eric brought up the negotiations. I actually thought they went as expected, and it was a good session to start with. Everybody got the information, and now they're gonna come back and negotiate. And
It was just 2. We got 4 more to go, but.
I know, exactly, but I really thought it went better than I anticipated, let's put it that way. Dewey, did you hear anything I heard on the radio about the bass tournament coming up in August?
Yeah,
Did you hear anything from,
from the core, no, I'm gonna make a stop there. The letter apparently didn't make it beyond the post office. I don't know. I sent them a letter explaining that it's,
I just heard that on the
They
news.
never got it, or?
I don't know, I'm just saying.
Oh,
Maybe it was file 13 for all I know, but I do have a copy of it if you wish to see it, but it was, you know, it was asking common sense thing, because, you know, a lot of these homes down along Shore Acres are retirement homes, or, I mean, they work their whole life to be on a quiet river, and that week of heck, yeah.
Yeah, they have a week that they can't deal with it. But we can't do much either, you know, we're trying, but. Then I got a couple of things I was gonna bring up for the workshop next week, and one of them was at Employee Appreciation Day
Yeah.
on the 27th. We need to discuss that next week. I think would be.
You've done that before. That was one of my questions. You've done that before. How did,
One year when Judy was a commissioner, at that time, she was gung ho on having a hamburger fry, a picnic. I know I made 15 pans of bars for it.
Well, did Jeff have something last year out here?
We didn't do anything last year but COVID year.
Was it the year before?
Jeff had
Yeah,
something.
Jeff
Jeff had
that.
that pork,
Did we?
pork.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, we did. So anyway, I wanted that put on for a workshop if possible, and also, nope, that was it.
They got the building down at the highway department, then Brian got it put in place and everybody's happy. I think, I haven't heard, Brian, have you heard any complaints?
Not yet.
So I got one question for you, that swamp there, are we gonna fix that swamp eventually when we get everything done?
Catch basin?
Yeah, right before it, there's a big pond and we need to, it's gonna be a mosquito trap and there's a lot of kids playing around there. I was just,
Right behind the trailer park?
Yeah,
Or the
right
very
next-
back on.
no, the one right by his new building.
Yes, so that was supposed to be, the contractor was gonna get in there last Friday to do the finished shaping and seating, blanket and stuff. They have not been in. They weren't in last Friday or yesterday. I haven't seen them yet today, so it should be done any day now.
Okay, I was just wondering on that. Everybody's happy there, and then we had a airport meeting, and I'll let Bob talk on that. He was more up in that stuff than I am. And I got one other thing. We have all them plugins down there at the fairgrounds. Why don't we rent them out to truck drivers that got their trucks sitting on our streets all over? Why can't they go down there and rent a plug-in? We got all kinds of them. Good income during the summer or winter.
where are these plugins?
In the fairgrounds?
Yeah, down by the deer pen
That's-
there, if you go around, there's plugins all the way around there. We could rent them out for $50, $100 a month. Give electricity to people that have trucks.
Parking would be tough. You got 70 feet taken up by one truck.
I don't know, it was just an idea. I mean, they're there, we could maybe get some revenue out of it.
Never even noticed.
Well, we have two of them sit down right across from the shop now on weekends.
Well,
They just pull them on the street and leave them sit.
and that's a fair board. The fair board
Well,
runs those.
but
That'd be something that they would have to,
Maybe they could implement that?
well, that'd be that's their
Their electricity
responsibility.
alert.
As far as,
That'd be their
it
baby.
wouldn't be ours. It'd be that's the fair board's.
Well, they're always- Money, it might be a good
They
way
have
for
the
them.
lease.
Right, right.
They pay the electrical.
Yep,
Like when they rent out the building, that's their.
that's right. It's not ours. That would be their fair board's.
So if they'd like more income, that's up to them to do that, correct? That's not my
Yep.
problem. Done.
Okay. Couple of things. I had a Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Board meeting last week. They made changes as far as salaries and whatnot and ongoing. There's some growth coming in Winona that they're gonna have some available space for the region as far as family housing that they're working on. Lots going on there as far as that's concerned. As far as community health, the only thing that when Dewey was talking about the 95,000, I think that's 95,000 is affecting this year's budget.
Right.
That they're gonna be 95,000 in the hole based on what the wages ended up at this year versus what they started out when they put the budget together.
Okay.
So it's a $95,000 hit on their budget this year. That, and their budget was pretty tight, so they're gonna be in the hole, and they do not have a great deal of reserve as far as their financial reserves are pretty limited. So, right, John?
Yeah, I was gonna mention that the 95,000 isn't a projection on what you're doing with any pay equity things. I haven't seen any of those grids, so I have no way of making any projections. The 95,000 that I spoke about at the committee was related to the contract settlements that you did for this year, the 1-year contract settlement.
Okay.
Then with Brian with regard to the airport, had the individual go out and look at the property and put together valuations on the property,
The appraiser.
the appraiser. And then that was looked at by a second appraiser just to verify the numbers. That comes out pretty close to what the owner is asking as far as the property is concerned. So now it has to be approved. Brian, it goes through the FAA and you negotiate with Binky.
Well, so the process is, so we'll
You want to come forward?
And so what the process is at this point is that the legal description needs to be prepared for the parcel that the land purchase we want to acquire is. We go through and we do the negotiating process at the county level, reach a settlement agreement, and then ultimately submit it to the FAA for reimbursement using the entitlement funds. So that process could take, anywhere from a few weeks, maybe a couple months to get everything ready to be able to make that initial offer. Negotiating wise, that can take, anywhere from, be one time and be done, or it could take, weeks or months, depending on how that process goes. Once the land is, have an agreement reached between the landowner and myself negotiating on the county's behalf, that comes to the board for approval. So nothing's final until the board approves that document. Then we go to the FAA to submit it for reimbursement of funding, and that can take anywhere from a few weeks to several months to get approval and reimbursed back. That percentage will probably be 90% reimbursement. There is no guarantee, but historically it's a 90% reimbursement.
Could it be less?
It could be if we ultimately settle on a value that's higher than what they would approve. So we do have some flexibility, some guidelines that we use to try to make sure that we're within that to reduce any potential that we pay more than what they would approve that 90% of. But realistically, for all intents and purposes, I don't see it being less. It should be at 90%. There's potential that the state would kick in a 5% state match to reduce the county's portion to 5% total.
That's moving forward.
And doesn't that discussion also have to be in a closed session with the board when it comes to negotiations on appraisals? We'd have to check with Sam.
So typically what happens on a road project is that we do the appraisals, we go out there and we use that appraisal value to negotiate the prices.
Okay.
I do believe that you can discuss it in closed session on the county's approach to negotiations and, where we want to offer, if we want to offer anything different than what the appraised value is. Now, the landowner does get a copy of that appraisal, so they do know what the appraisal is.
Okay.
But we could discuss that. I can look up the statute and send that on. If you want to have that discussion prior to a certain negotiations, we could definitely, or I can definitely meet with the board and have that discussion.
Thank you. So on the 15th of this month, we should get final information on the American money, on the rescue plan money, and how to use it. A formal approval, a formal notice, correct?
I thought that's when the public hearings end. The
Public
16th.
comments or the
Public
16th,
comments.
yeah.
So when does the final, how to spend the money report come out?
Well,
I
yeah,
thought that was the
It'll
15th.
be around on the
Oh, on the 16th, okay.
Okay.
I assume that's what-
period ends, and I would assume they've been working on the final.
I assume that's why we haven't heard much from AMC because they haven't said
Right.
anything yet. But I know like the League of Minnesota Cities have got a lot of stuff out there already, and so does the Minnesota Association of Townships on what their guidelines are. I don't know why they're that much farther ahead, but
For the final
Yep.
review. Did anybody talk to you with regard to the work group session next week and having an health insurance presentation?
Yep, I think we're gonna do the presentation and the plan is for it to be in this room
Yeah.
so that it can be recorded so that employees can go back and watch it again. But I think Tess is working with Andy on that. So we'll plan on having the work group in here.
But during the work group session, we are going to have health insurance presentation by at least one, maybe two.
yeah, this all stems from the fact that they're changing providers from Blue Cross to Medica.
There'll be a presentation for us next year, so don't count on next week's work group session to be real short. This is all I'm gonna say about that.
We gotta save money someplace. If we can save some there, it sure help.
We have negotiations that day too, Eric.
Yeah,
So, that's all I've got.
and I'm on vacation.
And he's gonna be, making his family happy by working on vacation.
Mhm.
I've been kind of keeping track of that American Rescue Plan information too, of some of the discussions we've had of who we would consider. So, started a new file.
That's all I have, so unless anybody's got anything else,
Yep, public comment.
public comment. Come on up.
Hello, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good to see you all in person again.
You too.
Yvonne Proudstick, Caledonia
Where's
Township.
your hat?
Oh, I forgot it.
I've never seen you without a hat.
Anyway, for over a year now, time has kind of stood still for me, and I've really been lax in keeping up with the minutes of the commissioner meetings. But I remember one of the big issues that I recall was the comprehensive land use plan, and that was going to be reviewed and possible changes. Was anything done with that? So,
That COVID year kind of put a damper on all that.
yeah, on everything. So at that time, I think there were going to be some subcommittees or something for different parts of it. Is that still in the plan, or has it just disappeared?
Well, there was a couple of subcommittees that had met several times and had come up with some recommendations too, but there was 2 or 3 that didn't have any mini meetings, so it kind of, and then we sent out an RFP to get professional services to help guide us through that. We never got a hit on those as far as someone wanting to do that.
Right.
And then the COVID thing hit, and we were going to have public meetings in areas of the county with the public to talk about these things, but with the COVID, that we had to cancel all that too. So yeah, right now it's just in limbo, and I don't know if it'd probably be better to start over here and start it up again.
Do we start from the very beginning, or do we take what we had started and tweak it to current status? 'Cause
Well, I think it would be in all fairness for a couple of those committees that did a lot of work and met a lot of times to probably use some of their work that they did. I would like to see that retained somehow.
Yeah, because if you start all over, then you're going to be maybe diluting that, but
I was just curious, thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's something else going through your board discussion probably, huh? Some land use.
Is there anything online as far as public comment?
Okay.
Nope. Then, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thanks, everybody.